I'm in drive currently. If I give it gas, so now watch. Sport, now the lights are flashing after I put it in sport mode, but now the car moves. What's up guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're working on a B7 Audi A4. We're working on a code P0706. You'll have all the PRNDS lights on your dash illuminated, and your car will forget which gear it's in. If you're having this problem, especially on this model A4, I have the solution for you. We're gonna remove the transmission control module in the back and have it rebuilt. So if you're looking for this fix, you've come to the right place. Currently, this car will drive and reverse just fine. However, when you're in drive and you're going up and down the street or whatever, it'll forget which gear it's in and it'll go into limp mode essentially and put it in neutral. But when you put it back into sport, the car will drive just fine. I did pick this car up for only $800 as I had a transmission leak right out of this transmission cooling line here, and it caused the CVT transmission to lose all of its pressure. We fixed this, put a new line in, filled it up with fluids. It's still kind of getting a weird shift and forgetting what gear it's in. So the next step for that is to remove that module out of the back. We're gonna drain all the fluid, change the inline filter. I'll show you guys who I'm sending it off to and exactly how to take it out and put it back in. And once we put it back in, I will show you guys the filling procedure that Audi calls for and all that fun stuff here. So, all right, so getting started on this job, one of the first things you want to do is get it nice and high because you want to be able to get in and out really easily. Some of the tools you'll actually need before you start this job, you'll need an M16 triple square with the hole in the middle like this. If you're going to do the CVT fluid and drain it all like I'm going to drain the whole system out. So you need this for the fill plug and that for the drain plug, or vice versa, sorry. And this is a 10 millimeter or a Allen head, however you want to call it. You'll need a Torx T45, a Torx T30, as well as a 16, a 13, and an 18. Extensions and everything like that, and anything else you got to make it helpful. So let's get under the car. I got these jack stands on Amazon actually for pretty cheap, and they have a locking pin in them, so it makes me pretty comfortable with keeping them this high. Let's throw Harbor Freight in there for a size reference, and we go full with no locking pin. So as you can see, these jack stands are quality. I really like these. I'm pretty happy with them. I'd love a real lift, but just wanted to show you guys. There's a link in the bio for these as well, so check it out if you need some new ones for yourself. All right, so we're gonna jump straight into the job. I'm gonna show you guys where the TCU is really quick, and then I'll show you guys what is required to get this out. Here's the back of the transmission here. One of the first steps we're actually going to do is remove this bar right here, and then we're going to remove this cross member. We're gonna unbolt it on each side, and that'll give us access to the back of this panel. There is also 2 triple square bolts right here, so make sure you have a triple square before starting this job. And then we'll be moving on to remove all these Torx that are around the transmission to get inside of here. We'll remove this clip, and we'll also remove the bracket up here. And then that whole case will come off, and we'll get to the module inside, pull it out, and have it rebuilt. So let's jump into it. This is the M10 triple square socket that you'll need for these 2 bolts as well, so don't start this job before you have this. You're gonna have a bad day. All right, so we got the triple square bolts out and that little bracket off. Before removing the 18 millimeter bolts on the side here, you actually wanna support the bottom of the engine with a jack, which we're gonna do next, because once you take this brace off, it's gonna lower down, and you don't want that coming down on you either, so we're gonna get a jack up in here next. So now we have the supported right here. I can still access the fill and drain plug if I want to while it's like that. And then now we're going to remove the 18 millimeter bolts holding this up. There's a bolt right there, a triple square, and one more right there, and then it'll come right undone. All right, so now we have the subframe disconnected here, but the jack is holding up the transmission. So the exhaust will support this. Now we're just gonna slide this on back to us. So that gives us access to all the Torx bolts right here. All right, so the next thing we're actually gonna do is we're gonna lower this transmission down just a little bit. It'll give us better access to the top plug here and also this top bracket. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so since that lowered, if you lower the transmission, then you can get this to pull further back. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug this clip. Kind of pull it down. All right, so next we're gonna remove these 13 millimeters on this bracket right here. All right, so now that we have the cable removed and we have this bracket removed, you're gonna wanna start removing all of these Torx bolts. We're gonna start at the top first. We're gonna get the top ones up here first and work our way down. Keep in mind there's also a metal gasket in the middle of this as well that you'll need to either reuse or get a new one. Usually safe to reuse them, but yes, let's go ahead and get these bolts off. You're also gonna want something to catch your transmission fluid in. It is going to leak, so once I start undoing it, we're gonna remove this underneath here to catch everything. All right, we're gonna lower this a little bit more. This bracket is also in the way. Let's see if I can show a better view of this now. All right, so there's there's just one on the top right here. One right next to the bracket hole. So those are the only two difficult ones to get to. These rests come right out. They're not even in that tight. Just remember, once you start cracking this free, this is gonna start pissing oil. It's gonna make it rain up in here. It's gonna be stinky fluid too. Hey, shouts out to my brother Rodney too. He actually bought me this Milwaukee for Christmas. This thing is a beast. Love you, bro. Need I say more? The tool speaks for itself. That thing's bad. Actually, I'm gonna keep a bolt back in here just because I want this to drain slowly and I don't want it to come like cascading down upon me. It's just in a little bit of the way just so it doesn't open too much. You guys feel me? Cause watch, this is gonna come out quick. You know what I mean? Then it's just gonna like fall and spill and shit. So there's actually two bolts on top. There's one more bolt right here, so that one's still holding it on. So I'm gonna remove that one real quick. And I will not be reusing this fluid. This fluid was really dark beforehand. I'm actually gonna be replacing the inline filter and all the fluids. So I'd like to get as much of this out as possible because of how bad it looked upon pickup. All right, now we just have that one in there that's securing it. So as you can see, now it's gushing. But if you don't leave a bolt in there and you just pull this off really quickly, well, it's gonna like blow up all over you. So we're gonna let this drain out. And then underneath this case right here is where the TCU module is. Pretty easy to get to, honestly. None of this was that difficult. You just have to have the right tools. So. All right, and next. All right, so now that the CVT fluid has pretty much stopped leaking, we can now pull this plate the rest of the way off. I'm going to remove my last bolt here, and then we're gonna slide this case off. And I'm gonna set it down on this cardboard that I have so that it doesn't go anywhere. Good idea to keep a rag nearby too, just in case you spill something. Oh, I knew something was gonna fall in there. But now that we have the pan off, we can access the TCU. The TCU is this unit right here. It looks like there's 3 Torx bolts holding this in, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead and get that out. There's T30s. Now the 3 bolts are removed, you just slide this out nice and carefully, and you have 1 transmission control module pulled. Now we're going to take this out and send it to a company in Idaho called Module Master, and they're going to rebuild the internal. Something's gone wrong in here. This is how the transmission chooses and selects the gears. It's all electronic here, so yeah, that's the next step here. You want to box it very carefully because these plastic arms can break, especially in packaging. So I'll show you guys how I package this. Then we're gonna get this sent out. So next, all right, this is the transmission control module out of the car. Not that it really matters. You can't do much to it. They actually remove this outside casing right here and fix it. But that's essentially what it looks like. These arms kind of like clip in, and there's only the 3 bolts that hold this in. The only bolts that hold this in are right here, and right here. So let's get this boxed up.
A few moments later.
I got the package back in. Let's get it unpacked. Back out to the garage, we got the transmission control module ready for installation. I don't know if it matters how clean the work was or not, or if it is bad, but warranty on there. They put their information on there, so they warranty that for a couple years. We have a new transmission inline filter. This is the CVT transmission filter. There's no internal filter that I'm aware of. I mean, I checked multiple times. For this transmission, there's not even a pan to access it, only the one to access this. So this is the filter that gets replaced. I'm using the Febby CVT oil. There's the part number on it and such. I used this when I originally changed the fluid, so I know that it works and it's good fluid. I get these from eBay. They're a lot cheaper on eBay. I think it was only like 60 bucks for all of these, so eBay, and I'll put the link in the description for that. So let's get this transmission control module installed, and then we're going to undo the filter, drain some more fluid out, measure everything, and refill it back up. So far, just off of that pan, I got just under 4 quarts, maybe about 4 quarts because this is a little bit over full. So just about 4 quarts of fluid out, and a little more drained in the bucket overnight, which you can see how dark it is. So as much fluid out of there as possible, and a new filter should really help us a lot. All right, so let's get this transmission control module installed and do the rest, and I'll walk you guys through the procedure. When you're reinstalling the TCU, just remember where the little arms go. If you line up one, you line up the rest. So I just line up this one in the slot up here, and then the rest will just wiggle right into place. There's also like little dowels right here that'll help line up the module. And that's in. These don't need to be super tight. They weren't that tight when I removed them. They came out very easily. And you would not want to snap one of these, so that would be a bad day. Remember, be careful of your metal gasket here and such. Now we're going to reconnect the subframe back up to the transmission. I like these triple square bolts up first. All right, now we're gonna jack it up and put the bolts in. Now we have all the fluid out. This is actually an inline filter. There's a filter in here. This is the transmission line here that connects up to the top. We're gonna replace this as well. They're a little expensive, but definitely worth doing because we're getting so much fluid out of here. This is the second time I've actually flushed this fluid out. This filter I'm sure is nasty, so. All right, so to get to these filter lines, which are right here, it's a 22 millimeter and a 19 millimeter. We'll have to remove these right here to get this little bracket out of the way first. Now we can crank these lines. Pretty easy. Oh, I see. So this one is actually reversed because it's actually going the other way. That makes sense. All right, so we got both of those disconnected. Now we'll remove the two 13 millimeters holding it in. Luckily, gear wrench dropped me off a bunch of tools. Look at that, I just clicked the wrench over. Pow! Now we have those removed and our bucket underneath. Now that everything is disconnected, we just have one little retaining bolt right here, and it's a 5 millimeter hex. So let's pop this off. All right, something I just noticed too, if you're replacing a filter, you actually need to remove these grommets right here. These need to go on the other filter. So the grommets look like this. I heated mine up first, and then you're able to put them in a lot easier. So, gonna get these installed real quick. Now we got the new filter ready for install. That's how it should look with the grommets there. Boom. Let's get it put in. I'm just gonna put these in loosely until I can like line up these pipes down here. These don't need a lot of pressure. You'll feel it. You'll feel it like when it gets nice and tight. And that's when you'll know how to stop. If you need to pull this down a little bit to get to it, that works too. Next I'll rehook the mounts. All right, so that's all hooked up. I actually will clean this really good, and I'll take a paint pen and I'll mark right here and I'll mark right here, just so that you know these never move. And if they do, you did it wrong or someone's tampered with it if someone else works on your car. This doesn't really need to be that tight either. It's on a rubber grommet, so this just holds it so it doesn't rattle back and forth. And this is just something I like to do, but I like to write the mileage on it whenever I've changed something like this. So I know that the mileage is 134 right now. You know, that lets the next person know that that was changed. So now we got all that done. Now it's time to measure how much fluid we got out and pump the fluid back up in here. And real quick, that's what I mean about marking with the paint pen. That way you just have, you know exactly where it was. If it's moved or anything, you'll know about it. One tip on an old filter too, you can repurpose those plastic pieces. That way your fluid doesn't leak out of here whenever you're getting rid of it or throwing it away. Next on the agenda, I got me a cheap little multi-use pump. It's only like $6 at Harbor Freight. I get a new one each time I use new fluids. I don't know why. Just you don't feel like cleaning it. We're gonna pump about 6 quarts of this CVT fluid in here. I've done this several times before, right out of the bottle, and I dislike pumping it right out of the bottle. I'm actually just going to use this bucket right here, and I'm gonna clean this out really good, and I'm gonna pour all of the fluid in here. That way when we're pumping up in there, you'll see what I'm talking about. When we have the hose up here, I can actually catch the fluid dripping back down. When it's in a bottle and you're pumping out of here, it just goes everywhere and it's just not fun. So just measure what you're doing in a bucket if you want. Basically, that's how I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the fluid measured first. Let's see how much we took out. All right, so this is the old fluid. Right here I have about 4 quarts. These ones are a little overfilled and this one's not all the way full. So just a little over 4 quarts. I have a little more in this bucket too. I'm guessing this is about a quart. I'll measure it once I have a space to put it. I don't have another bottle. So at 4 quarts here, plus the quart over there, I'm gonna add 5 quarts to this bucket, and then we're gonna start to pump this bucket up into the car. These hoses are cheap, and this can just pop out at any time too, so you do have to be careful and keep an eye on these. They also make a special tool to pump, and I'll leave a link in the description because I don't have it, but it is better if you have it. Now we got the bucket and the pump set up. So this is how I'm gonna do it. Now we're working. See, it always drips if you don't have the tool. This way the bucket catches all that fluid. Yeah, so getting the tool prevents you from looking like an idiot like this. Good news, getting a lot of fluid in there. Bad news, this is a really terrible way to do it. We got all 5 quarts in first try. Now we got to start it and let it get to temp. We're going to watch it on the OBD reader, Badgecom reader, just to make sure we're at the proper temperature levels. I'm going to tighten these up. We gotta let it cycle through, and we're going to see if we can pump some more in there or if that's all she needs. Let's get to it. All right, before we get it started to check the transmission, I am draining the rest of the oil, removing the filter. We're going to be slapping a cheap microguard filter in it, some full synthetic from O'Reilly's. We're going to be hitting it with the Liqui Moly engine flush. We're going to let this cycle through for about 45 minutes. Then I'm going to change the filter and oil again. We're going to put a man filter in it with some nice Liqui Moly stuff. Jump back into it. Cheap microguard filter on. All right, now we're going to start it for the first time in about 10 days or so. Gotta go into my phone then. Whoa-pow! Transmission temperature. So we're gonna monitor this until it gets to full operating temperature. And then once it gets to full operating temperature, we're gonna pop the drain plug and see if it needs any more fluids. All right, temperature's not too bad. We're gonna cycle through each gear with our foot on the brakes. Just to confirm everything is gonna work okay here. Into neutral. I'm gonna hold it here for about 10 seconds or so, just to get the fluid running through. I actually didn't know this was a 7-speed. I thought it was a 6. The things you learn. See, I don't know if you guys remember before, but when I was putting it in reverse, the whole car would shudder. And then PRNDS lights would go crazy. None of that right now. See if the wheels move. Reversing, so far so good. Handle's coming to a stop okay. This is drive. So far so good. By now usually this would have already freaked out and shuddered around, so nothing's promised yet, but so far so good. We're gonna let this get up to temp a little bit more. Be right back. All right, so they want this to be about 65, 70 degrees Celsius, which is just about what it's at right now. It might be a little hotter than it's supposed to be, but this isn't in a danger zone. If your transmission gets up to about 200 degrees, that's when you really have to worry about that. But now that it's at this temperature, we're actually gonna go and remove the fill plug and see if it spews some out. If it doesn't, then it needs more. That's why I use cardboard underneath cars, because you can just flip it over and then you got a nice clean side. But we're gonna get back under here and check this out. See, there's a better way to do this. They make a tool that screws into the bottom of that and you can pump it all up in there nicely. Link in the description unless you want your garage to look like this. It is a bloody mess, mate. No, it's a mess though, man. So now we got it full. Now we're gonna actually bring it down and do the transmission adaptation on the ground. Now we're running a little bit warm, but it has just been sitting here for 40 minutes with no air going through it. So we're gonna shut it off and flush the oil, then we're gonna take it out and drive it around. I got the cheap filter out, we're putting a man filter in now. We're gonna reinstall this and then we're gonna put the liquid moly in. Now it's time for the moment of truth, so we're gonna lower this off the jack stands, do the transmission adaptation, and drive it around and see if it works. So let's get into it. You guys want to see the sketchiness? Don't try that at home. That's why I need a lift. If anyone wants to sponsor me on a lift, hit me up. Alright, so I'll post the transmission adaptation thing that I found online that I'm going to do with the procedure. You usually need a VCDS to access it, but we're just gonna do it anyways, so. So we're gonna go just in drive. We're actually gonna do this back the other way, hang on. So we just go forward about 30 feet or so. Brakes. Let 10 seconds go by. Switch to reverse. I'm gonna stop for 10 seconds. And you repeat that process 5 times. time. And that's it, folks. This should be all you need to do. And now we're gonna take it on a test drive and see how it runs. So before, when I come to a stop, it would forget what gear it's in, and then all the lights start flashing. So far though, we are looking good. It's cold up in here. Temperatures right there as well. That is live. We're at 165, which is a great temperature. I've had this. It's gotten hotter before with the old fluid and stuff like that. So this is a good sign. Oh, it's beautiful. It's perfect. Go ahead and say that was the problem. The TCU module failed and it needed to be rebuilt. $200 plus the cost of the fluids. We're about $400 in instead of replacing a whole entire transmission. Plus the cost of the hose. We're about $600 into this car just to fix the transmission. So not bad, not bad. It's sipping so nice right now. That's incredible. Probably shouldn't be going this fast with bald tires. Oh, she's moving. She's alive. Let's go. I'll call that a fix. If this video helped you fix your problem, smash that like button, leave a comment down below. Happy if I could help, if so. Yeah, so if you enjoyed it, man, thank you. Until next time.